From the outside, the mansion stood tall and proud, wrapped in gold trimmings, guarded by wrought iron gates, and nestled in one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in the country. To strangers, it was a symbol of power. To the media, it was a place of influence. But to Zara, it was a prison she had never seen. She was born blind, a condition her mother called a curse. Her father called it a setback. And her siblings? They called her nothing at all. Growing up, Zara memorized the rhythm of people walking past her door. She could tell who was home just by the weight of their steps. But no one ever stopped for her. No one ever entered just to sit with her, not even on her birthdays. She never saw the colors of her family crest. She never saw her mother's pearls or her father's tailored suits. But she felt everything. She felt the way their voices tightened when she entered a room. She felt how fast her siblings shut up when they realized she was nearby. She felt how the silence around her was filled with shame. On paper, her life was privilege, private tutors, silk sheets, imported meals. But Zara would have traded it all just to be loved, just once. Instead, she lived with whispers of disappointment, of pity, of disgust. One time, when she was just 12, she asked her mother why she didn't get hugged like her siblings. Her mother simply replied, "You wouldn't understand. And frankly, you don't need it." Zara didn't ask again. And so she listened to conversations she was never meant to hear, listened to decisions made about her future, without her voice, without her consent. And then came her 18th birthday. She had no expectations. She knew there would be no party, no gifts, no guests. But she still held on to a tiny hope, the kind only the heart can carry, even when it's breaking. That evening, dressed in the only outfit she loved, a simple lilac dress with pearl buttons, she walked downstairs, just in time to hear everything. Behind the dining room door, her mother was whispering to her father, not angrily, not emotionally, just cold. "It's time. We can't keep a liability in this house forever." Her father sighed. "She's 18. She has no future. We've done more than enough. It's not like she'll get married or make us proud." Then came the part that broke her. "She's just a shadow of our name." Zara stood frozen. Her hands trembled. She clutched the banister as if it could hold her heart together. They weren't just giving up on her. They were getting rid of her. That night, they told her the driver was taking her to a new music school for the blind. She believed them. She smiled. She thanked them. Her heart clung to hope like it was the last thing keeping her alive. But the car never reached any school. Instead, it stopped at a dark intersection miles away from home. The driver, silent and stiff, opened the door and told her, "This is where you get off." Confused, barefoot, and frightened, Zara stepped out. The car sped away. No goodbye, no instructions. Just gone. She stood alone. Rain fell. Wind howled. The city buzzed around her. A world she couldn't see. And a world that didn't care she was there. She reached out, trying to feel something, anything, but only touched cold air and concrete. She began to walk, step by trembling step, listening to the traffic, feeling the texture of the pavement, counting her steps like she did at home, though this place was nothing like home. Her shoes were soaked. Her skin turned icy. Her knees scraped against the edge of a stone bench. But she kept walking, because staying still meant giving up. And even though the world had turned its back on her, Zara hadn't given up on herself. Then she tripped. Her foot caught something, a crack in the sidewalk. Her body lunged forward, and for a split second, she accepted it. She was going to fall. She was going to break. But just before her knees hit the ground, she was caught. A pair of arms, strong, firm, protective, wrapped around her like the sky, catching a falling star. And then a voice. Deep, calm, steady. "I've got you." Zara froze. Her lips parted. Her breath caught in her throat. That voice, it wasn't like the others. It wasn't pity. It wasn't fear. It was gentle. "You're safe now," he whispered. She didn't know who he was. She couldn't see his face. But in his arms, for the first time in years, She didn't feel invisible. That night, in the darkest hour of her life, a stranger's voice became her anchor, and that stranger was Leon Hart, a man whose name echoed in boardrooms, newspapers, and billion-dollar headlines. But in that moment, to Zara, he was simply the man who didn't let her fall. And that was the beginning of everything. The night that should have broken her brought Zara to the doorstep of the one man no one would ever expect to care. Leon Hart. To the world, he was a mystery, a billionaire by 30, a corporate lion whose decisions could make or break empires. He was known for his stone-cold stare, his ruthless business tactics, and a silence that unsettled even the most confident of men. They called him the Heart of Steel, not because he was heartless, but because no one had ever seen him bend. Until Zara, when he caught her that night. Fragile, trembling, soaked in rain. Something in him shifted. It was subtle, hidden beneath layers of control he had perfected for years. But he felt it. A tug at his guarded soul, a whisper from a place he had long buried. He didn't know her name, didn't know where she came from. But her face, so calm despite the chaos. Her voice, quiet yet brave, it stayed with him. Still holding her, Leon asked gently, "Where's your home?" Zara's lips parted. She hesitated, not because she didn't know the answer, but because she realized in that moment she no longer had one. I don't know," she whispered, swallowing the lump in her throat. Leon said nothing. He looked at her, really looked, and saw something he hadn't seen in a long time, a kind of pain no amount of money could buy or heal. Without another word, he took off his coat and wrapped it around her shoulders. And for the first time since her abandonment, Zara felt warmth. He didn't offer pity. He didn't ask more questions. He simply said, "You'll stay with me tonight." Zara's fingers tightened slightly around the fabric of his coat. Her instinct was to refuse, to protect herself from more disappointment. But something about his tone, not commanding but comforting, told her she could trust him. And so she nodded. That night, Leon Hart brought her into a world so far from hers. Yet somehow it felt closer to home than anywhere she'd ever been. His penthouse overlooked the skyline, glittering with lights she couldn't see. But she could feel the warmth of the room, the scent of sandalwood and citrus, the softness of the couch he helped her sit on. He didn't crowd her, didn't overwhelm her with questions or assumptions. He just made her tea, sat across from her, and waited. It was Zara who broke the silence. "Why are you helping me?" she asked softly. Leon looked at her for a long moment. "I don't know," he admitted. "I just couldn't walk away." She nodded slowly. It was the most honest answer anyone had ever given her. In the days that followed, he arranged for a doctor to check on her. He had groceries delivered in quiet packages, so she wouldn't feel like a burden. He even asked one of his staff to read her books aloud in the afternoons, never making her feel like it was charity. And he never once asked about her past, not because he wasn't curious, but because he respected her silence. Zara wasn't used to it. Every kindness felt foreign, like a dream she was scared awake from. But day by day, moment by moment, something started to bloom. One morning, as she sat in the sunlight of the study, listening to the hum of the city through the windows, she turned her head toward him and asked, "Do you always drink your coffee without sugar?" Leon raised an eyebrow. "How did you know?" "I can hear you grimace after every sip." He chuckled genuinely. The sound surprised even him. It had been years since he laughed like that. Not in a meeting, not at some gala, but here, with this blind girl who had been left behind by everyone. They began to share small things. He told her about the books he never finished reading. She told him about the songs she used to hum when she felt invisible. He taught her how to identify his footsteps. She taught him how to listen, not just with his ears, but with his heart. One evening, as they sat on the balcony, a gentle breeze brushing past them, Leon said quietly, "You don't ask me about what I do." "Why?" Zara tilted her head. "Because who you are to the world doesn't matter to me. I only care who you are when the doors are closed." And that hit him, because no one had ever seen him without his title, without his legacy, without his armor. She was blind, yet she saw more than anyone ever had. But even as their bond deepened, Leon couldn't ignore the whispers from his staff. His board, the world. She's blind, Leon. She has no background, no records, no family. This isn't you. What are you doing? He dismissed the comments, shut down the gossip. But inside, he wrestled. Not because Zara wasn't enough, but because he feared he wasn't. How do you offer your heart to someone so pure when yours has been hardened by years of betrayal? Leon had built his empire with blood, sweat, and brutal decisions. He had no family, no one close. He lived alone, trusted no one, and never, ever allowed weakness. But Zara, she made him want to be soft, to be better, to be known. He began walking differently around her, speaking slower, opening doors not just with his hands, but with his soul. And she bloomed. Zara had always been careful not to ask for too much. She never assumed she'd stay long. But the way he treated her, as though she was a part of the world he lived in, not an outsider, gave her hope. One morning, while helping fold linens, Zara smiled faintly and said, "I never knew silence could be so kind." Leon looked up from his laptop. "What do you mean?" Silence used to mean rejection, loneliness. In my house, silence was a punishment. But here, with you, it's peaceful. It's like breathing. Leon didn't respond right away. He couldn't. Her words had found a part of him that even he had forgotten. But just as peace began to root itself in their lives, the storm was already brewing. Someone had started asking questions. A journalist, one who had long chased Leon's secrets, had gotten wind of the mysterious girl staying in his penthouse. Photos were taken. Rumors began to fly. The billionaire and the blind girl. That was a headline floating through social media. Leon tried to protect her from it, but Zara wasn't naive. She heard the tension in his voice when he took calls. She sensed the unease and the silence that followed. And then came the night. She overheard two staff members talking in hushed tones just outside the hallway. She doesn't belong here. She's going to ruin him. He's distracted. The board won't like this. Zara's heart cracked again, not because she believed them, but because she realized she was a threat to the only place she had ever felt safe. She waited until the next morning. Then calmly, she packed a small bag, just a few things, and waited for Leon to return from his meeting. When he walked through the door, she stood quietly, composed. "I think it's time I go." Leon froze. "What?" "You've done more for me than anyone ever has, and I'll never forget it. But I won't be the reason your world crumbles." He stared at her, this small, blind woman standing tall, brave, willing to lead without bitterness. And something inside him snapped. "Do you think I care what they say?" he asked. She lowered her head. "You should." "No," he said firmly, "because they don't know what it's like to find light in the dark. You, Zara, are the only real thing I've known in years." She trembled. "But I don't want to be your weakness." He stepped closer, lifted her chin gently. "You're not my weakness. You're my reason." And in that moment, it was clear the cold CEO, the man the world feared, had fallen in love, not with power, not with beauty, not with reputation, but with a girl the world had thrown away, a girl who couldn't see his face but could see his soul. And he, for the first time, wanted nothing more than to be seen. He didn't know yet about her inheritance, didn't know her past was hiding secrets that could shake the ground beneath them both. All he knew was that he wasn't letting her go. Not now. Not ever. Zara had come to believe that life, after darkness, might still hold moments of beauty. She had seen it, not with her eyes, but with her heart, in the way Leon's hand lingered on hers just a second longer than necessary, in the warmth of his voice when he said her name, in the unspoken silence where two lonely souls had found each other. And Leon, the man who was once more machine than human, had begun to smile. Genuinely. Zara had no idea what love was supposed to feel like. She had never received it. Not from her parents, not from her siblings, not from the world that looked at her like a burden wrapped in silk. But she felt something now, something blooming quietly like a rose cracking through concrete. She never asked what they were. She didn't need a label, because what they had was real. At least, she thought it was. But some truths are ticking time bombs, and Zara's life had been wrapped in a secret that neither of them saw coming. It started on a Tuesday, ordinary, quiet, peaceful, until Leon received the file. A thick, unmarked envelope slipped under the door of his office with no return address. Inside was a birth certificate, a DNA report, and a photo, an old, grainy image of a young girl no older than 5, wearing dark glasses, holding a plush bear. Zara. Attached was a note, typed with no signature. Before you marry her, know who she really is. She's not what she seems. The family that threw her away is the same one that stole your father's legacy. Leon's blood ran cold. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. He stared at the documents again. The DNA report was conclusive. Zara was the biological daughter of Al-Haji Umar Bakery, one of the wealthiest oil magnates in Africa, presumed to have died without a female heir. But that wasn't the shock. The shock was the last page. A will, handwritten, dated, signed. It clearly stated that if anything happened to Al-Haji Bakery, 70% of his empire would go to his daughter Zara. Leon's father had once been a business partner to Bakery. That partnership ended badly, with betrayal, lawsuits, and debt. Leon's family had been destroyed financially. His mother died of stress and shame. And now, the blind girl he had fallen for was the missing link in the web that had ruined his family. He didn't want to believe it, but how could he ignore it? He stared out his office window for hours. His staff avoided him. His phone buzzed endlessly. Zara didn't know any of this. She was back in his penthouse, humming softly as she prepared tea the way he liked it. No sugar, just a hint of ginger. When he came home that evening, he was distant, not cruel, just unreachable. She fell at the moment he stepped in. "Leon," she called gently. "Yeah." His voice was clipped, controlled. "You're quiet. Just tired." But she knew better. She always did. That night, they didn't eat dinner together. He stayed in his study. Zara sat alone on the couch, her heart aching, not knowing why. Days passed. Leon wrestled with the storm in his heart. The man who had once trusted no one was now confronted with the possibility that the only person he had ever opened up to was connected to his greatest pain. And yet, she didn't know. She was blind, yes, but not to the truth. She had lived in it her whole life. Rejection, loneliness, betrayal. How cruel would it be to punish her for something she didn't even remember? But the more he tried to hide it, the more it consumed him. Zara noticed everything. The shift in his tone, the hesitation in his touch, the way he started speaking in shorter sentences. One night, she finally asked, "Leon, have I done something wrong?" He looked at her. Her face, so innocent, so open, made his chest tighten. "You haven't done anything," he said, almost too quickly. But the wall was already rising between them. Zara lay awake that night, tears soaking her pillow, heart beating in fear. She had never been enough for anyone, not her mother, not her father, not her siblings who mocked her blindness behind her back. And now, not even Leon? The next morning, she received an unexpected visitor. A woman in a beige pantsuit, with too much perfume and a smirk that never reached her eyes. "I'm from Bakery Holdings," she said. Zara blinked. "Bakery?" "Yes, your late father's company." I don't understand." "Oh, honey," the woman said, shaking her head. "You don't know, do you? You're the heir, the only legal one. That's why your family tossed you out. They didn't want you to find out. But you're not just a blind girl with nowhere to go. You're a billionaire." Zara couldn't breathe. She felt the world spin beneath her. Her knees gave way, and she reached for the wall to steady herself. The woman continued coldly, "Your beloved Leon Hart knows. Has for days. Guess he didn't think you were ready for the truth." Zara's stomach twisted. He knew? Why hadn't he said anything? Was it all a lie? She stumbled back to her room, heart pounding like war drums. The love she had trusted, the first home she'd ever known, suddenly felt like a beautifully crafted trap. When Leon returned that evening, Zara was waiting. Her face was calm. Too calm. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. Leon froze. "Zara, You knew I had a family, that they're rich, that they left me to protect money that should have been mine. And you knew that my father's name is the same man who destroyed yours. He looked at her, eyes heavy with guilt. I didn't want to hurt you. You lied. I didn't lie. I just didn't know how to tell you. Her voice cracked. So you distanced yourself instead. You left me in the dark. Again. Do you know what that feels like, Leon? He closed his eyes. I was angry. Not at you, at everything. My past. My family. Yours. I thought maybe you were planted. Maybe this was all a setup. Her breath caught in her throat. So you stopped loving me? He opened his eyes. I never stopped. Then why did it feel like you did? Silence. Long, painful. Finally, she said quietly, you once told me I was your reason. But if your love needs to disappear when things get complicated, then maybe I was just convenient. No, his voice broke. You're not convenient. You're everything. Zara shook her head slowly. I need time. Zara, she reached for the door. I came here with nothing, Leon. And somehow, I ended up being a threat again just for existing. I don't want money. I just wanted love. And she left, not because she hated him, but because sometimes walking away is the only way to be seen. The city buzzed with life, neon lights flashing across towers of ambition and secrets, but Zara walked through it unseen. Again, blind, alone, and carrying a truth that shattered every illusion she dared to believe in. She had left the only place that had ever felt like home. Leon's penthouse, once her haven, now stood like a monument to everything she thought love was and everything it wasn't. She didn't cry. Not that night, because some heartbreaks aren't loud. They don't scream or weep or collapse. Some heartbreaks walk away quietly, with their head held high and their heart in pieces. She found a small room above a bakery in a quiet part of town. The owner, an older woman named Miriam, took one look at Zara's white cane and offered her a key with no questions. You've seen the worst of people, haven't you? Miriam said gently. Zara gave a quiet nod. Then maybe it's time you saw the best. In the weeks that followed, Zara woke at dawn, helped Miriam knead bread, and served customers who didn't flinch at her blindness. She didn't need to explain her past. There was no wealth here, no penthouse, no designer gowns, just the smell of fresh dough, the warmth of simple kindness, and the echo of her name when spoken without pity. But deep inside, she carried a war, because healing doesn't happen in silence. It breaks, screams, unfolds. She thought of Leon every night, the way his voice used to calm her, the way he used to sit beside her and read aloud, the way he once promised, as long as I'm here, you'll never be alone again. But he let her feel alone when it mattered most. And what's worse, he had done it out of fear. Fear that she was a weapon. Fear that her truth would poison what they had. Fear that love could be stolen by legacy. But Zara wasn't afraid anymore. One morning, she woke to find a letter slipped under her door. No sender, just her name, written in shaky ink. Inside was a document from Bakery Holdings, a summons. Her late father's who had been unsealed. She was required to appear. And that's when the whispers began. News spread like wildfire. The blind girl who'd been thrown out like trash was a true heiress to $1 billion fortune. The media lost its mind. Zara's picture, old, blurry ones from school days, flooded tabloids. Blind heiress found. Family betrayal of the decade. Bakery's daughter hidden in plain sight. But it wasn't the media she feared. It was her family. And Leon. She walked into that courtroom flanked by 2 lawyers from a firm Miriam had helped her find. Good people, not vultures. Zara wore a simple white dress, her hair pulled back, her cane tapping against the marble floor as the room turned silent. Her mother was there. So was her father's brother, the man who had declared himself the rightful heir. And sitting at the back was Leon. She felt him before she heard him. Some part of her heart still beat to the rhythm of his presence. But she didn't look his way. Not yet. The judge cleared his throat. The court is now in session to finalize the estate of Al-Haji Umar Bakery. His last will and testament clearly state that the majority share of bakery holdings shall go to his biological daughter, Zara Bakery. Upon confirmation of identity, Zara stepped forward. Her voice didn't shake. "I never asked for his money," she said, "but I won't let people steal what's mine again." There was a quiet gasp from her mother. "You don't belong in that chair," her uncle shouted. "You're blind. What can a blind girl run? You're not worthy." "I was worthy the day he wrote my name in his will," Zara said coldly. "And you were stealing from a dead man." The room buzzed. The judge called for silence. It took hours. Testimonies, documents, arguments. But by the end of the day, it was done. Zara was confirmed as the majority shareholder of Bakery Holdings. And for the first time in her life, she stood taller than the people who once left her on the street with nothing. She didn't cry, not out loud, but inside, the little girl who once begged for love stood on the ruins of everything she lost and claimed the one thing no one could ever take from her again, her voice. Outside the courthouse, the press swarmed. "Zara, what's your next move? Will you take over the company? Are you and Mr. Hart still together?" She paused at that last question. Leon hadn't moved from his corner, but when she finally turned her face toward him, her sunglasses catching the gold of the setting sun, she said calmly, "There's nothing between us now, just a truth we both needed to face alone." Then she walked away, and this time no one stopped her. That night, Zara returned to her tiny room above the bakery, her cane leaning against the wall, her breath shaky, but her heart steady. Miriam was waiting with a cup of tea. "So," she said softly, "what happens now?" Zara sat quietly, thoughtfully. "I think I become the woman I was always meant to be." In the days that followed, Zara surprised the world. She didn't move into a mansion. She didn't throw lavish parties or wear diamonds. She remained where she was, in her simple life, learning the ropes of the company from afar, training with advisors who respected her mind, not her image. And slowly, her story changed the narrative. The blind girl wasn't tragedy. She was a phoenix. And soon, the world would see her rise. But just as Zara started building her new empire, from the ground up, she received a message, a voice note, from Leon. She hesitated for hours before playing it. Then finally, his voice filled the room. "Zara, I tried to protect you by staying away. But now I realize that was just me protecting myself. From my guilt, my pain. I was so scared you were too good to be true. I ruined the one thing that was. I never stopped loving you. But I'll respect your silence, even if it breaks me." "Leon." Zara didn't respond. Not immediately. Because some wounds need more than apologies to heal. They need proof. Not of love, but of change. The world had watched Zara rise from the ashes. From a discarded girl left in the cold to the true heiress of a billion-dollar empire, she had become a living legend. Newspapers labeled her the miracle of bakery. Social media called her the blind lioness. And even business tycoons began watching her every move. But for Zara, fame meant nothing. What mattered was that she had her dignity, her voice, her peace. And yet, late at night, when the world went quiet, she still heard Leon's voice in that message he sent, echoing, unresolved, sincere. She had deleted it, then recovered it, then deleted it again. Because love, real love, is not a fairy tale. It's raw. It's painful. And sometimes it returns in ways you never expect. 3 months later, Zara was at the new foundation center she had built, the Braille of Hope, an institute for visually impaired youth. She taught young girls how to navigate a world that often judged them before even knowing them. One afternoon, she was seated at her desk, surrounded by papers and Braille textbooks, when Miriam, her gentle landlady and now closest friend, walked in with a curious smile. "There's someone outside," Miriam said softly. "He says he came to volunteer." Zara raised her brows. "Name?" "Didn't give one." "Did he mention who referred him?" Miriam hesitated, said, "You saved his life. Once." Zara's heart paused. A strange, quiet flutter bloomed in her chest. "Let him in." She heard the footsteps first. Slow, measured, familiar. Her chest tightened. Then the door creaked open. And there he was, Leon Hart, the billionaire CEO, the man who once carried her from the streets, the man who broke her heart and maybe still held its pieces. She didn't say anything. Neither did he, until finally he whispered, "You look powerful." Zara chuckled. "Is that your way of saying you're sorry?" "No," he said, stepping forward. "That was the first thing I wanted to say. I'm sorry comes after." Zara leaned back, arms folded, her unseeing eyes staring straight through him. "You left me, Leon, when I needed you the most. You chose fear over me. I know. You didn't trust me. I know. You broke my heart." He stepped closer. "Zara, I broke my own, too." Silence. He took a deep breath. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a small black box. But he didn't open it. Instead, he placed it on her desk. "I came to say one thing. I don't want your money, your company, your fame. I want your mornings, your laughter, your stubborn opinions. I want your heart, only if you still believe it can ever be mine again." Zara's lips trembled. He didn't beg. He didn't plead. He simply turned and walked away. That night, she sat with a box in her hand for hours. It was a ring, a simple gold band, engraved in braille with the words, "I saw you first." Tears slipped down her cheeks. And suddenly, she realized all her life, people had looked at her as someone who couldn't see. But Leon had seen her, even when he was blind with fear. 2 weeks later, the headlines changed again. Blind heiress marries billionaire CEO in front of her family. Zara Bakery's wedding silences the world. The girl they abandoned now walks down the aisle with grace and glory. The invitations were discreet. No press, no paparazzi. But everyone who mattered was there. Not because she needed them, but because they needed to witness the miracle. The venue? A garden once built by her father, abandoned after his death. Zara had it restored, flower by flower, bench by bench, brick by brick, because she wanted to write a new ending in the place her story began. As the guests arrived, hushed murmurs filled the air. CEOs, artists, even her estranged siblings. They watched as white petals floated in the wind, and gentle piano music danced through the garden. At the altar stood Leon, not in a designer tuxedo, but in a simple suit that matched Zara's elegance, humble, quiet, powerful. And then she appeared. Zara, dressed in ivory silk, her hair in soft curls, her cane gliding over the aisle like it had danced with destiny itself. She didn't need anyone to guide her. She walked alone, straight, steady, glorious. Her mother, seated in the second row, wept openly, because in that moment, she finally saw the daughter she had never understood. Zara reached the altar. Leon extended his hand, and she took it. The priest began his vows. But when he said, "If anyone objects to this union, speak now or forever hold your peace," a gust of wind blew through the trees. Silence. And then Leon turned to the crowd, his voice firm but emotional. "I object," he said. The audience gasped. Even Zara blinked in confusion. He turned to face her. "I object to the way the world tried to write your story for you. I object to the silence we both let grow between us. And I object to any future that doesn't have you in it. So today, in front of the people who once failed you, I vow never to be among them again." Zara's breath hitched. Then she smiled, tears on her cheeks. "I was blind," she whispered, "but I saw love when no one else did." And the priest declared them husband and wife. Later that night, at the reception, no opulence, just warmth, laughter, music, candles. Zara danced barefoot on the grass, no longer needing to see, because she had become the light others followed. Leon held her close, resting his forehead against hers. "You changed the world without even trying," he whispered. "No," she replied softly. "I just refuse to let it change me." The Bakery Heart Foundation had funded schools for blind across 3 continents. Zara's book, Walking Without Eyes, became a bestseller, a memoir of love pain, and power. And every year, on their wedding anniversary, she and Leon returned to that same garden, not to remember pain, but to remember the day the world went quiet. And finally listen, she was blind. They left her, mocked her, betrayed her, but she rose. She chose love, and she taught the world that sight means nothing if you can't see the heart, if the story touched your soul. Like it, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe for more unforgettable stories that prove true love sees what eyes never can.